Hi everyone. In this video, I'm going to do something that I have not done yet before, which is live coding. And I'm going to truly live code through a retrieval problem. I haven't really thought about this problem more than, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes. So we'll see how it goes. I expect it to be bumpy and a bit rocky, but it also might be fun as well. But before I get into that, I wanted to share some just incredible news. So, as of July 5th, which was Saturday, I am a new maintainer of the ColBERT repo, and this has been just an incredible 72 hours for me as I've been getting a lot of an outpouring of love and support on Twitter, and it's been very emotional for me because this is something that I think is going to really change my entire experience and trajectory in machine learning. So, as I've mentioned on my Twitter feed, I'm currently working through reviewing at a high level open issues, open PRs, and the current dependencies. And I will be sharing my thoughts on Twitter. I'll also be posting a video by the end of this week where I walk through some of the things that I'm observing, some patterns that I'm seeing emerging across the issues and the PRs, and really trying to understand what the community's needs are, what are the different user needs and user use cases, and just kind of getting the lay of the land. So expect a lot of ColBERT content to be coming soon. And again, thank you, Omar. Thank you, everybody who has put their trust in me, dives, and what I think is a pretty solid, deep understanding of ColBERT. Obviously, lots more to learn, and I think this will be an amazing experience for me as an open source maintainer. So, the live coding process that I'm going to work on today is based on my AgentFastbook project. And if you haven't seen those videos, AgentFastbook is a project where I am trying to see if I can do manual dataset curation, uh, automate that with LLMs. So this is a initial diagram of AgentFastbook. I'm using LLMs to curate a complex information retrieval dataset called fastbook benchmark, which is a QA dataset that I've curated manually with question answer pairs from the end of chapter questionnaires in Fastbook, which is the FastAI textbook. So I start with the gold answer. I use an LLM to decompose it into answer components, where each answer component is a unique concept that has its own explanation or definition. And then I feed the chapter text to some kind of retriever. The retriever could be a ColBERT model. It could be a single vector embedding model. It could be SQLite for keyword search. It could be an LLM, etc. TBD. And that retrieves passages that are hopefully relevant. Then I use a LLM to extract text from those relevant passages, and that gets stored as the relevant context for the answer component, for the given gold answer, for the given chapter and question number. So that's a rough draft pipeline. I'm not sure how it's going to evolve, but I'm sure it will. Here's an example of a dataset item. So we have chapter, question number, question text, gold standard answer, and then answer context is a list of one or more answer components, dictionaries, which has context, which is one or more chunks of relevant text that any of them address the answer component at hand. I also have some other flags and some other items, but this is the core of it that is useful for now. So I have brought down the data, which is 191 dataset items, which are question items, with answer, answer context, and so on. I'm just going to do chapter 4. I picked chapter 4 because it has a number of multi-answer component question answer pairs. So I think that's a good kind of difficult use case for the LLM to handle. So here's chapter 4. There's 31 questions. And then I've also loaded my evals with haiku answer components. So for example, how are the files and folders in the MNIST sample dataset structured? That's chapter 4, question 2. There's a gold standard answer, which has multiple components to it. Here are the ground truth components, which are these ones. And then here are the haiku generated components. And then the annotations don't really matter, but they're there because that was part of my annotation process. And then I also have some notes regarding the result and performance of haiku decomposing the text in comparison to how I decomposed the gold standard answer to answer components. So what am I trying to do here? I want to take chapter 4 as a body of text. I want to give that to the LLM, and I want to say, hey, given this answer component, or maybe even given this gold standard answer, can you please retrieve relevant chunks of text from this context? That's the general idea. That's as far as I've thought and planned this exercise. So, first thing I want to do is I have this function that I wrote a while back, which takes a notebook and let's see, basically takes the markdown cells as well as code cells and basically concatenates them all into a single string and then returns that string. So that's what I'm calling notebook to string. So let's throw that in here. And then I also have, let's see, chunk string, download, load questions. Here we go. So download the chapter notebooks. These are from the fastbook repo. So I need requests. So let's do that. And I don't want to get all the files. So I'm just going to do URLs 0, 1, 2. And it's going to be this. Oops. So this is going to get that URL. And oh, I guess I'm taking it from Google Drive. And let's see if this works. Key error 2. Oh, yeah, that's right. So I got to pass this. Okay. So now I have this, and if I open this, I can see train a digit classifier and chapter MNIST basics. And yeah, this looks good. So now I'm going to do notebooks to string, and I'll call this G4 string. Copy this path. And that's what it looks like there. Okay, I'm going to now prepare my chat with, I'll probably use Sonnet 4. So if I go here, so we have models from Claudette, and I'm going to use Sonnet 4. Nope, that's not what I want. Sonnet 4. And then let's get the basic kind of chat. Where is it? Okay, looks good. Claude Sonnet 4. And then as a kind of beginning prompt, I'm going to follow what has worked pretty well with me is like this XML style prompt. So it's going to be instruction. And then I'm going to give it answer component. I think I want to start with gold standard answer. So I think I'm going to start by giving it the entire gold answer. And then this is going to be chapter text. And then I'm going to do response format. And in response format, I'm going to say, I'll say relevant passage 1. Let's do a couple more. Come on. Okay. And then I'll repeat the instruction. So the instruction is going to be something like, given the chapter text below, extract from it relevant passages of any length that address the concepts in the gold standard answer. And I guess I've been doing hyphens. I don't know if that's, let's do underscores. I don't think it matters. I don't know if that matters for I mean, this is not really XML, so, but let's just do underscores. Okay. And then here, I'll say chapter text. Okay. And then dump that in the instruction. Okay, so what goes here is the answer. Here's the chapter text. And then I think what I'll do is follow the response format shown. So I think this is pretty light in terms of instructions. I don't know. We'll see. I'm actually not really sure what to expect. So here's the prompt. And let's print it. Given the chapter text below, extract from it relevant passages of any length that address the concepts in the gold standard answer. Follow the response format shown. Follow the response format shown. And then response format, relevant passage, chapter text, gold standard answer, gold standard answer. Okay. So if we do format prompt, answer, let's see, chapter 4, 0. So this is talking about subfolders and how they're structured and things like that, and also or additional information about what a validation set is, and some other information. So I'm going to give this as the answer, and chapter is going to be chapter 4 string, and I think that's that. So this should be a giant wall of text. And if we look at, so let me say prompt. All right, so here's the instruction. Here's the gold answer. Here's the chapter text. So chapter text, I should probably add like this. Probably add this, and then add this. Again, I'm not sure if that matters, but a little easier to read as I'm inspecting it. So now these are nicely wrapped in these tags. Instruction, gold standard answer, chapter text starts there, giant wall of text. Chapter text, response format, instruction. Cool. So let's take our code, which I guess we can just take this. So I'm going to say response is here, and I believe this was called prompt, underscore prompt. Just going to keep that as the thing, system prompt, and let's run it. And then once it replies, I will grab the content text. And here we go. Relevant passage 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So let's go here and let's take a look at cost. So that was 8 cents. Not terrible, right? That was 8 cents, and that was 20,000 tokens, 500 tokens out. Okay, so it's going to take 8 cents for each question. I have 31 questions, so with this given prompt format, it would be $2.50 about output. I don't think I'm going to get to the point today where I do all 31, but that's just nice to know. Okay, so we have this now, which is really interesting. And I'm going to look at eval 0. Actually, I'm not going to look at that. I'm going to look at chapter 4, 0. And I'm going to look at context. What is it? Answer context. All right. And let's make this a little prettier. And we'll say for answer component in that. I want it to print answer component and context So let's see if this works. Okay. And then I think what I want to do is for context in answer component context, print context. All right. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 answer components. Two of them don't have any context. So I'm going to say uh, if AC context greater than 0, then do all this business. All right. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 6 answer components, and we have 4 relevant passages. So right off the bat, just with my basic prompt, Sonnet 4 has implicitly decomposed the gold standard answer into different answer components than I have. So that's interesting to note. So let's look at the first one. The MNIST dataset follows a common layout, separate folders. Let's see what's inside the training set. Path train.ls. There's a folders of 3s and a folders of 7s. In machine learning parlance, we say that 3 and 7 are the labels or targets. So if we look at this, MNIST dataset follows a common layout. So that's good. We have a match. Let's see what's inside the dataset. We have that. There's a folders of 3s and a folders of 7s. We have that. Which contain the JPG files for the respective class of images. Let's see. We don't have that. So that's this code here. Now you could argue that it's not even accurate because this is PNG and that's JPEG, but the idea is to try to capture something about the file type. Evaluating the model on the validation set. Let's see. I don't think that's there. Oh, here it is. Evaluating the model on the validation set. Okay. And then facilitate the detection of overfitting. I think I saw that somewhere. Yep. Facilitate the detection of overfitting. And to report the human interpretable metric. To report a human interpretable metric. Okay. So that's cool. So right off the bat is one, as I said, Sonnet 4 breaks up the kind of different components differently than I have, but it has almost full coverage, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 6 answer components it does address. I don't think it addresses the PNG name, probably because this says JPEG, so that would be interesting to see if it influenced that at all. This was a bit cumbersome to kind of look at this one at a time. I do think it's important to do that. Obviously, look at your data. But I'm curious if we can do something like this. So we have this, and then I'm going to say if that context is in here. So if if C in that, print match. And I think what we want to do is, yeah, I think that's fine. Maybe this? Not sure. So match, and then we don't need the extra line. And let's do something like that. So match, no match, no match, match, match. So else. And I don't know, this is kind of, I don't really like how I'm printing this out. Maybe this will make it a little cleaner. Yeah. So I think I want to put this at the top. So answer component match. Yeah, but it's not the answer component that it's matching. It's the context it's matching. So context match, context match. Context is this chunk. No match, context no match. Context match, match, no match. This is interesting, right? This one here, to report a human interpretable metric such as accuracy, the key difference is the metric is to drive human understanding and the loss is to drive automated learning. So if I go back here, let's get rid of this. So it's interesting. This is verbatim what the answer component is. But in my data set, I did not have that as a relevant passage. So let's go back up. Yeah, to report human interpretable, the key difference. So I should actually add to this context, I should add this literal actual string match. Cool. So we now have 3 takeaways, which I'll write them here. 3 takeaways so far. First takeaway is that Sonnet 4 decomposes answer into components differently than me. Number 2 is that even though it does so, Sonnet 4 finds, let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 relevant passages for 5 out of 6 answer components. And then the last takeaway, which we just saw, is that Sonnet 4 actually finds relevant passages that I missed. So for 5 out of 6 is not too bad. Added benefit is that it finds relevant passages that I missed. So that's kind of interesting. Okay. So let me structure this a little bit more. And what I'm going to say is this is going to be, what should we call this? This is going to be find relevant passages given gold standard answer. And I'm just going to say in this section, I use the entire gold standard answer in the prompt and ask the model to extract relevant passages from the chapter 4 text. So that's the first one that we're going to do. The second thing that we're going to do is find relevant passages given an answer component. And here I use one answer component at a time in the prompt and find relevant text. Okay, so we go back up here. And I'm going to remove this because this is very annoying. All right, so copy this prompt. And what I'm going to say is answer component. Now, Sonnet doesn't know what answer component is, so maybe this is not a good idea. But that's fine. Maybe it will deduce that it's a partial answer, and maybe that's helpful. We'll see. And then I'm going to grab and what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab answer context and grab the answer component. And I think that's what I need. So instruction, answer component, there are two subfolders, Chapter text starts here, goes on forever, ends here, response format, instruction. Okay, so we should still be at 8 cents, right? Yeah. All right. So let's remove that. Okay. So same thing here. Fresh chat. And let me just double check that I have a single answer component, which I do. And then once it does that, we're going to take a look. Okay, this time it has found 3 relevant passages. So it has the MNIST dataset follows a common layout. It has, to get a validation set, we need to remove some of the data from the training set entirely. Let's create tensors for our 3s and 7s. Ideal image. As we've discussed, we want to calculate our metric over validation set. Now, if we go back here and we look at the answer component, there are 2 subfolders, train and valid. The former contains data for model training. The latter contains the data for validating model performance. So what Sonnet is now doing, it's answering this, separate folders for the train and validation set. But then it's kind of going into more detail about to get a validation set, the separate valid directory. That's what this directory is for. So I don't think that is redundant, right? Because we've already addressed it here that we have separate folders for the train and valid and train and valid. So I think that's redundant. And then here it goes into calculating a metric. We don't inadvertently fit, blah, blah, blah. So if I go back up to the original or the gold standard answer, it did not retrieve, as we've discussed, we want to calculate our metric. Yeah, so it did that. Sorry, hold on. I'm looking at the wrong one. As we've discussed, evaluating the model. Yeah, so it's okay. I'm trying to make sense of what's going on here. Sorry. So in this original, in the gold is in the answer component version, it has this that wasn't in the whole gold standard answer. To get a validation set, we need to remove some of the data from training entirely. We have that. So let's start with tensors ideal image. So let's start with tensors ideal image, but it doesn't actually have the code. As we've discussed, evaluating the model, as we've discussed. So yeah, it seems to be getting more relevant, getting more passages than needed for the answer component. That's kind of my initial takeaway. Um, if we look at the answer components that have this, evaluating the model in the validation set, evaluating the model on the validation set. So interestingly there, my answer component actually matches verbatim one of the relevant passages. But the context is, as we've discussed, we want to calculate our metric over validation set. We talk about overfitting, and we talk about human interpretable metrics. So I think I'm running into a situation where I'm not utilizing a notebook correctly for this. But before I try to do some kind of better visualization, um, let me kind of modify this, and let's actually do all the answer components. So we're going to grab our prompt. So it's going to be for, yep, that's correct. Nope, that's not correct. So for every answer component, pass it the answer component, and we'll call it answer component results. And we're going to create a new chat. And we are going to grab this. ACRES, thank you. So this is always chapter 4. And this is the answer component. We are using Sonnet 4. Give it the formatted prompt. Append the text. Okay. Before I do this, oops. Let's look at our cost. So that went up from 8 to, okay, so still about 8 per message, 8 cents per message. Before I do all of these, I'm going to look at the prompts. This is going to be very annoying. All right, let's not do this. Let's take out chapter and then do this. Okay. Chapter is the empty string. Okay, that's better. Answer component. Ah, okay. So we actually want answer component. So there are 2 subfolders. Each subfolder has 2 subfolders, which contain the JPEG, evaluating the model in the validation set, facilitate the detection of overfitting, human interpretable metric, public data sets, full MNIST data set, and that's good. All right, so I think we can do this now. And I don't want to print the prompt every time. So let's see what it does. So I think I had like what? 8 answer components, something like that. So this should be about 50 cents, 60 cents. Interesting. 20,000 input tokens per minute. Okay, that's a bummer. Let's see how many we got. We got 2. Okay. Um, so we're not going to loop through this. I'm going to comment this out. And I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to just basically run through each one. So if we look at this, I have 8. So I'll run through each one. I will not empty the list every time. So I'll run through each one, pass it to, let's see, let's grab this. Okay. So I'll just basically manually iterate, pass it here. It'll get the response, append it. I'll iterate to the next one, so this will go to 1, pass it through, append, etc. So I'll just do, I guess, 1 per minute or something, and then restart the video again. Okay. Okay, so I got it to run. I know I had that 429 error. I think it was 429. But I think the reason it also was not working because I had ran out of usage credits. But anyways, I just added a sleep for 60 seconds and I ran this and I got my 8 responses. So we can now look at them. Okay. All right, so this is the first one. And let's do print. All right, so the first one is a perfect match. Relevant passage ID 1 is the context in the first one. And what I'll just do here is, yeah, let's just leave that for now. Okay, cool. Then we look at the second one. There's a folder of 3s and a folder of 7s. So that's there. Again, top passage. So that's cool. Good to see. The Python 3 sorted PNG files. And as we might expect, it's full of image files. So we have that. So interesting. We do have the sorted, but we don't have the output. That actually might be because I parsed the notebook incorrectly. So if we go back up here, notebook to string, I'm only doing markdown and code cells. I'm not doing output cells. So that's not on Claude. That's on me. Otherwise, it would have gotten, or sorry, not that one. It would have gotten this entire chunk. So that would have been a match. So far, we're 3 out of 3. As we've discussed, let's see, rotation set. Looks like it's not in there. So that makes it what? 3 out of 4. Here we go, as we've discussed. Just double checking that it wasn't in here. So that's interesting. Not sure why it didn't find it there, but that's cool to just as an observation. So what is that? 4 out of 5. The key difference, third passage, 5 out of 6. No context, so we're not going to care about that. So 5 out of 6. Okay. So interesting to see. So couple takeaways. So writing down main takeaways for after running answer component inference. In most cases, I think it was 4 out of 6, 4 out of 5 of the 5 out of 6 that had matches. The relevant context is in the first relevant passage. So if we were thinking of like the rank, the top one, the top one passage retrieved is relevant. So that's pretty good. And then overall, 5 out of 6 matches, or actually I should say matched context passages is same performance as the gold standard answer. And of course, if we look at our usage, this is now, instead of, what was it, 8 cents. Now, granted, I had some multiple iterations because of that error, but it's about 8 times the cost. So however many components you have, that's how much cost you have. Technically, it should have just been 6 times the cost because I should have ignored those answer components that don't have relevant context in the chapter. So it's a greater price for the same result. And I think something that would be worth pursuing, I'll just say here, something worth pursuing is prompt engineering, especially for the answer component version of inference. I might add an instruction that says if one relevant passage is enough to address the answer component, do not retrieve more passages. Something like that. So overall, I consider this a solid result. So if you think about it, the performance is pretty good, right? 5 out of 6. I just kind of threw together a prompt. I didn't really prompt engineer. So maybe I can squeeze out 10% more performance in terms of matching relevant context to my data set baseline based on what Claude retrieves. I think, given that it's about, let's say, 50 cents per question, and there's 31 questions, it'll be about $15 to do the answer component retrieval. And it'll be about 8 cents times 30 is $2. So the whole thing might be a $20 ordeal. I don't know how caching plays into this, so before I just run that, I think I might look into, is there a way I can just cache the chapter text and then run inference on it with different prompts? I've never tried that, so this would be a great opportunity to learn that. And then, of course, the final thing that I'll do after I actually get the results is I'll put together either a quick notebook app or a fast HTML app where I can compare and annotate on the performance of the retrieval. And ultimately, I think the main question there's two main questions that I'm trying to answer. Number one is, can Sonnet 4 do this task? Our quick and dirty initial sign says yes. Second question is, do I need answer components? And our quick and dirty initial answer sign is saying, initial results are saying no. So I might have to reevaluate my entire answer component approach to my data set. I hesitate to say that because part about the answer component is that it is very kind of granular in how a retrieval method gets annotated. That being said, I don't have to do the answer component part to start with. The decomposition of the gold standard answer to the answer components, I don't have to do that as a first step. If giving Claude Sonnet 4 the gold standard answer gets me the right results, I can do the answer decomposition after retrieval, right? So I could give it the gold standard answer, it'll retrieve multiple passages, and then I'll have a second LLM call where it'll say, here's the gold standard answer, here are the relevant passages, please decompose the gold standard answer and match it up with relevant passages one by one. And then the final thing would be, extract just the relevant text from each passage so we don't have any kind of like filler text. So those are my thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this live coding experience. I hope it wasn't too painful to watch. It was certainly a new experience for me. I'm definitely going to do it again. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of learning for me, and I was forced to think out loud. So I think I'm definitely going to do this type of video style again. As I had mentioned at the start, you're going to see a lot more ColBERT content from me, as well as on Twitter. So please be on the lookout for that. Thank you for sticking around until the end, and I will see you next time.